Hello, this is Painful Lessons Podcast, and I am Tyler Ramsey. And what do we love at Painful Lessons Podcast? We love the art of growth. We love inspiring stories from painful lessons. We own mistakes here. And I have, in the discussion of recovery, which I am passionate about, and I'm in recovery, I have a hero that he had a discussion of his own recovery, and I saw a video of it when I was close to rock bottom, and it made a profound impact on me. Today, we have David Dastmalchian. Am I saying that correct? I feel like I'm saying that correctly.
You got it, man.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You're one of my favorite actors, but I feel the thing that I'm most excited about, I'm most inspired by, is this story. We call it a share, like in the rooms, we call it a share. You have, I feel like, one of the most honest, real, just really thoughtful stories of recovery. And it made a gigantic impression on me when I was at my lowest. And it encouraged me to be honest and to try to embrace certain things that I was incredibly ashamed of. And so I'm very excited that you're here today.
Thanks, Tyler. Thank you. Hi, everybody. That's such a I've only known you a short while now, and you being in your creative space right now is such a cool gift because it's like vibrant the way that you are. And you were, when I came back into like regularly attending recovery meetings, one of the first people that just like, because they can be sometimes somber places, and like you're this explosion of positive energy and light and love, and you reached out to me about that specific conversation, and ever since then we've been having our own conversation. And so this feels like a really cool moment, getting to be here and talk with you and share with all of the people who are going to be participating in their own way in this conversation.
Yes, when you showed up in the group that we're in together, I was so excited because, well, first of all, because of this video that really just smacked me in the face at such an important time, but also projects that you are part of, or that I've seen you as an actor, are some of my favorite things. And I'm like, anything that James Gunn has ever put out is, I couldn't be a bigger, I'm just so into it. Like, the phrase FOMO, the word FOMO, fear of missing out. When I see him create a team of buddies like he did in Suicide Squad 2, I was just like, the whole time I'm watching this movie, I'm like, I want to be one of those buddies so badly. And your character in it is Polka Dot is one of my favorite characters of any movie. And listen, the movie's been out for a while, so I apologize if someone doesn't know what happens, but you die eventually, and it's one of the greatest deaths of all movies ever. It comes at such a funny moment, and the fact that did you love being in that movie?
Oh my God, I loved it. And James has been a very good friend of mine for a long time, and he's somebody who's vibrating on a level artistically, creatively, professionally that is so inspiring. He's spoken publicly about the fact too, he's been sober for a very long time, and he often states he wouldn't be where he is, and he wouldn't have the life that he's had if he hadn't made that choice and done the work to be there. And when you see the way he can tell stories about seemingly on the surface irredeemable people, irredeemable characters, criminals, the lowest of the low, scoundrels, and he finds a way to make you love them. This like suicidal, just geeky, total weirdo, the polka dot man, Abner Krill. What the opportunity he gave me with that role on so many levels was there's so much gift about it, like getting to be in a film that James has written and is directing. That right there is the gift. But then you look at the role and you go, this guy, Abner, has so many qualities that I have that I can now feel so comfortable relaxing into the performance. And, James was really diligent about stripping away any artifice from me and any kind of inauthentic trying to throw a little spin on. So just be you, just be in that space, be uncomfortable, be what you are. And there I am in this costume, which it's one of my favorite costumes I've ever seen in a movie. That sounds, I guess, wild because it's mine, but I don't care. It is pop art, kind of expression of something you've never seen before in like a superhero movie.
It's all polka dots.
But it feels like, it's like some kind of 70s, 80s thing you would see like in a gallery in New York or something. It's beautiful.
Is it Kurosawa? There's the polka dot artist.
Oh, right.
Lady.
Will
you look that up, Jerry?
I forget her name, but I did look when we were working on the movie. I was doing so much research into polka dots. What do polka dots mean? What do they represent?
Yeah.
What are polka dots? And all of it all comes back down to this like throwaway goofy character that was on, I believe it's issue 200 in Detective Comics. Whatever it is, it's 200 or 300. It's one of those 100, the double zero issues, which back then the publishers at DC really wanted a character on the cover that popped off of the magazine rack, so that you made sure to grab it. So they wanted something colorful and bright. So they created this goofy character. Leave it to James Gunn to go back into the annals of DC history and go, that's the most despised, the most made fun of villain of all Batman. I'm going to put him in this movie.
So great. There's a scene that I think is so funny, and it's when Milton, the character that no one notices, dies, and you're so broken up because
I'm the only one.
Yeah, and you're the only one that even notices or has noticed Milton the whole time. Milton. Oh, just talking about this makes me feel like I have a group of best friends, and they are somewhere close by, and they are playing like beanbags or something. And I'm like, and I feel like, man, if I just after this, I'll go play with them or something. I mean,
that's what the experience was like making it too, because James does create a mood, an atmosphere on set that's super conducive to being creative, to being free. He's like, when he's behind the monitor, when he's giving you direction on set, you're talking to like one of the most, accomplished professionals in the business, but sometimes you feel like you're talking to like a 12-year-old. Oh, his excitement and energy about it is so great. And there's so much love in the work. He has so much love for it, and he has so much love for the people that he's working with. So all of a sudden you're there with, Daniela and John and Idris and Margot and the rest of the crew. Joel is so great. And one of my best friends, one of the closest people to me in the world, Steve Agee, who is John Economos in the film. Yeah. He also was the Shark. He was King Shark on set with us. So we were just being stupid, fart jokes, just being ridiculous, and playing pranks and having so much fun while the bond was so real and so great. And you could feel it in the movie,
Yeah. Steve Agee, I used to work at a place called Buena Murray, and I made shows I worked in reality TV, made shows for MTV, and Steve Agee worked in like
he wrote, didn't he? He worked on like the Real World or something.
He maybe later, but at the time he was just in charge of checking tapes in and out of this vault. And I always thought he was pretty funny.
I want Steve Agee. He and I have he had a podcast for a while called We're No Docs, which like people who like to have lots of medical opinions about their own conditions and others, but nobody's a doctor. So I would go on his show sometimes, and I want him, and I've done a couple of podcasts with Steve over the years, but the wonderful thing is, like, of course Steve. Everybody knows Steve. Steve, I hope you're watching this. Everybody who's watching this is like has a Steve Agee story. He's friends with everybody. So I want to start a podcast too. It's like Steve Agee's best friend, and each episode is Steve Agee talking to somebody else who's like, I'm friends with Steve Agee. I'm friends with you. But we should get him on the show. He'd be such a great guest.
Listen, any of the James Gunn, Steve Agee, I would be ecstatic.
He's shooting Peacemaker season 2 right now. Dude, I was just talking to him.
It's so good. Peacemaker is so good.
It's brilliant. There's never been a TV show like Peacemaker, and yet it reminds me of all of the things that I love about shows of the past. And Cena is so great, and Jen is so great. The whole cast is phenomenal, and James, I don't know how he does it. Yeah. I really don't. Here he's leading a studio, making a Superman movie, overseeing all these different shows and productions, and then writing and directing a TV show.
It's dazzling.
He's a superhuman. It makes
Guardians
me
of the
tired when I
Galaxy.
think about it.
Okay, because I do want to kind of dive first into the recovery story, and then I'm also such a fan of Late Night with the Devil. Is such an incredible horror movie.
Thanks, man.
And the idea that it on Rotten Tomatoes, I don't know if you know this, you have as high of a rating as Rosemary's Baby and like Jaws, and I mean it's such a rarefied air.
That's humbling. That's wild. It's spooky season as we're taping this right now. I don't know when this is going to air, but I love spooky
We'll air
movies.
this after the election because I'm convinced that whatever we do, everyone's going to be election focused. So we'll probably air it in 2 weeks.
Okay.
2.5 weeks.
But it is that time of year when a lot of people watch these scary movies, and I am somebody who loves horror and I love genre.
Yeah.
And so when Late Night with the Devil became something that was, an opportunity, I had a chance to participate in, and I started looking at it and thinking about it and going to make it. I was just like, this is exactly the kind of project I love doing. My concern when I was doing it was just that no one may see it, because a lot of times you make a small little movie like that has a very small budget that doesn't have, there's no big, IFC is incredible, Shudder's amazing, but there's not big like marketing budgets. It's like you have to really are reliant upon maybe word of mouth, what happens in the festival circuit, hopefully press. So the fact that we got such a positive response from the critics and the fans, and now it's had a really wonderful splash in the world of horror cinema this year. I'm just like the gifts of recovery, the many gifts of if I weren't clean, sober, doing the deal, the mental health journey that I've been on.
Yeah.
None of that would happen. And Late Night with the Devil, this might sound silly to people watching, it actually was a character in a role that tapped right into many of the things I'm struggling with in my current life. Like it was a great role for me because it was something I could really relate to, because I know how it feels to be Jack Delroy. Okay,
so because I also want to get to your comic books and everything, but let's get to story of recovery. I am an alcoholic, and I have also found myself addicted to different drugs at different times. And when I finally got sober, it wasn't just from alcohol. It was also, I found myself really kind of abusing Adderall, abusing Xanax, abusing Valium. And I even I had purchased a bunch of Xanax that turned out to be fentanyl. And and so I was probably on my way to being addicted to much, much more. And thank God, way to go, God. Thanks. I have made it out. And it's a daily thing, which we share the ride of addressing it day to day. And so what were you recovering from?
So I've been clean for 22 years and 5 months from all substances, but the drug that had me in its grips for the last years of my using was heroin. I was a intravenous heroin user and abuser, and at the end of my using, that was peppered with a fair amount of speedballing, which is when you mix speed and uppers and downers, and what I was mixing was mostly meth and heroin or cocaine and heroin. But 99% of my use, the last years of my using, was as a heroin
junkie.
addict, as a junkie. And it's really interesting tracing it backwards, how the progression led to, because like for you were on the path and the descent into once your body gets that taste of what the opiate power is, it's like for most of us, and even people who maybe don't have a proclivity towards addiction. Maybe there's a number of people out there who can drink alcohol and aren't alcoholics. A number of people who smoke pot and they're not drug addicts. A number of people who might even recreationally use cocaine who aren't drug addicts. Heroin, the opiates, the fentanyl, those are the ones that I'm like, I don't care if you've got genetic propensity, if you've got a mental health issue towards it. Once that's in you, it's very, 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 very difficult to not go all the way down the drain with it. And so let's rewind from here. We'll talk about this too, but like me at the bottom of the drain, back to like then the heroin use, which was a daily practice, twice daily practice that you go back to when it was, twice weekly, once weekly, and then pre that was cocaine, pills, uppers, downers, pot, alcohol, all this. So when I got clean, which when I was 27 years old, May, almost 28, go all the way back to, let's say, being 12 and getting the first real drunk on. The first time alcohol gave me that click, that warming feeling, that feeling of...
The warming feeling.
Of everything shifts. Gravity shifts. Colors change. Sounds change. All of a sudden, that feeling of inevitable suffering, sadness, isolation, insecurity, fear was like lifted off of me.
Yeah.
And I suddenly felt much more likable. I felt much more, good about myself. I felt much more positive about the future. I felt much less sorrow and weight over the state of things that were going on with my family, with my personal life. Now, this is a 12-year-old, mind you, who's wrestling with all of that stuff. But I got it. I got that click from the alcohol. And that was like the starting gun for me. And then...
You're like, I am home.
I found home. And then as time went on, it just wasn't enough.
Yep.
And then I got pot, which was so helpful for me with my insomnia and anxiety, but then was adding another weird layer of anxiety. So I didn't totally love that. And we're now getting through the teen years to becoming a habitual, needing pot for sleep, needing pot to, go to the movies, whatever it was, cocaine, crack, just needing that next level. And the cocaine and the crack was phenomenal for me, but the problem was that it was untenable. It didn't seem like something I would be able to like maintain throughout. With drinking, or grass, you could wake and bake and live your day and feel like everything feels manageable. I felt manageable under that space until you don't. And I want to get to, because this is something really important about what I'm excited about to talk with you today.
Sure.
Which is purpose, right? You brought that word up, and it's a word that is very imperatively important to me in my journey as a human. But when I go back to, say, 12, before that first drink, and the years leading up to it, the depression, the kind of obsessive thoughts about suicide, or the obsessive thoughts about, how difficult it was to just exist sometimes. At the core of that, because you go, well, you had parents that loved, yes, your parents were highly dysfunctional and there was a lot of wild abuse and crazy, stuff in the house, and you were neglected a lot, but you were loved, or you had a church community where love was one of the things that was taught, or you had friends, love. I genuinely felt hounded by an incessant voice in the alley, or a voice in the, just outside, that was getting closer and closer, and eventually started to feel like it was in my own head, that was like, you're absolutely alone. Nobody really, they nod their head, they smile at you, they act like they understand you, they tell you that they love you, they tell you that they're there for you, but eventually, ultimately, you will be abandoned, you are alone, you're alone, you're alone, you're alone, you're alone, you're alone. And those clicks that I got from alcohol, which then led to drugs, that feeling of loneliness was so managed by it. Something about it made me feel connected to something. Something about it made me feel less threatened by being alone.
Yeah.
And that leads us up to then at age, 19, being friends with 19 and 20, being friends with these musicians. I was in Chicago. They were shooting dope. I'd always romanticized dope. And by dope, I mean heroin. I'd always romanticized that life because musicians and artists who I admired, writers who I admired, had all chased the dragon.
Sure.
There was something that seemed like, what is it? Why is that? Why did that work for them? Why did that get them? And then these musicians who I really like, they're jazz musicians. They were all shooting dope.
Yeah.
And I was hanging out with them, and I tried it for the first time. And Tyler, I never felt less alone, never felt less threatened by the prospect of pain, abandonment, betrayal. I felt in that experience, as that warmth took over, that embrace of it, what I always felt like people said God would feel like.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great description. It's it's the thing, the word, when you say the warmth, it includes so much more than just temperature. You're like, oh man. I remember it, it's like each time you try a new drug for the first time, it's crazy how they don't do it. It's so wild that they don't repeat. You don't get, that first time is the first time, and you are not going to repeat it. But the first time is pretty crazy.
That first time, and that was from snorting it. I didn't start shooting dope until about a year into snorting, and I was with a buddy. We were driving from Chicago. I had to leave school because even though I was on a scholarship at this incredible acting conservatory, I didn't have enough money to pay for like groceries and stuff. So I was working overnights at a convenience store, and that wasn't enough. So I asked if I could have a leave of absence.
Okay.
I was going to go to Alaska to be a fisherman. So on my way out of Chicago, I threw this huge going away party. I was on all kinds of speed. This guy shows up with some of my musician friends, of course.
Yeah.
And he was so cool. He's a drummer. And he said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I'm headed to New Orleans in the morning to go party for a week at Jazz Fest. Then I'm going to go to Alaska and become a fisherman." And he's like, one of my best friends is a musician in New Orleans. I'll come. Can I come with you on your road show? I was like, hell yeah, man. So we get in my car, 5 a.m, stop by his dope man spot. He loads up on all this dope. We get to Graceland on the drive down. I'm on so much speed. I'm seeing little ghostly Vikings on the hood of the car breaking my engine apart, and I'm laughing. I'm like chain smoking, watching like It's so dangerous when I think back. I'm on an open highway driving down from Chicago to Memphis. Yeah. I don't know why we decided we wanted to see Graceland. So we go to Graceland. We park back on it's called Bluebird Lane. He says, "I'm going to do my last hit. I'm kicking heroin. I can't do it anymore." So he fixes up, and he can't throw away all these bags of dope he just bought.
Oh, gosh.
He's like, what a waste.
What a
man.
shame. What a waste.
He goes, "Here, why don't you have them?" I was like, oh. Fuck yeah. And I wasn't shooting yet. I blew it at Graceland. I felt, like I said, I felt the illusion, this illusory warmth, this embrace, this thing that felt like what I thought I had been promised, the safety, security, comfort of God would be like. And man, whew. And then I went on. I did end up I was a professional fisherman in Alaska, and I was taking all kinds of pills to keep myself straight doing that. Then back to Chicago, full-time junkie. And it's wild, man, because this is something really important. I hope everybody who may be listening or watching this clocks. That voice, that notion, that messaging that I was getting from the, down the hall, that's like, you're alone. you're alone. You're going to be abandoned. You're going to be alone. You're going to be alone. And I'm doing more and more heroin, and it's keeping it quiet. It's keeping it quiet. But here's the weird, insidious, evil, disgusting, terrifying, destructive nature of this stuff is it's like mathematically, scientifically on a graph. We could look at how the beginning where all that was drowned out and it would last for a long time.
Yeah.
Next time it was drowned out a little bit less, and it lasted for a little bit less,
Yep.
and a little bit less, 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 until you find yourself sleeping in a car, stealing from Tower Records, or, robbing weddings, or scamming your family into getting you enough that you could keep yourself well. And now that voice is reverberating around your head. It's like, gotcha.
Yeah.
And you are so fucking alone. Now you really are alone. Now your family won't even let you in the front door because you've stolen so many DVD players. Your friends can't even pick up the phone because every time you call, you've got some other grift. You're all alone. Now you are fully fucking alone. And you have been not only abandoned by everything, by society, you've abandoned yourself. You've now completely removed yourself from yourself. You're as far away from your consciousness as you can possibly be. And so
you got into it to avoid feeling alone. And for a minute, you did not feel alone. And then the irony is that it was going to make you feel more alone than you would ever imagine feeling.
Yeah. And here's the dark part of this conversation. But it's important. So, because especially if you're watching this and you feel like you're alone, because so many of us do. And you don't have to be at the bottom of the barrel of your addiction. You might just be having a really hard day and you're feeling alone right now. So I reached that point after numerous attempts to figure out how to get out from underneath of it, and I couldn't, and I'd lost every great opportunity, and then been, basically had a girl that really was a good person and cared about me, and I had robbed her blind, and she was supposed to be gone for the night, and I came to the conclusion that that the world was just, my suffering was so great, and the suffering that my existence incurred upon anybody around me was so great that the world was a much better plane of existence without me in it.
Yeah.
So I was able to scrounge together about $120 or $100 worth of dope. And I put as much as I possibly could into a spoon, which was at that point was like five or six bags. Usually I would shoot 2 bags at a time. So this is a lot. And this is good Chicago China white heroin that was super clean, super powerful. I cooked it up, shot all of it, and said goodbye to the world. And then I woke up a few hours later, covered in like my own vomit.
Yeah.
I hadn't died. I cooked the rest of it up. Didn't even pass out when I shot it. Just felt so out of it. Now I'm fully on. You're not only the most alone, and you will always be alone, but your life is so worthless, and you are causing so much destruction. You need to go. You got to get out of here. You got to get the fuck off this place. So I went in the kitchen, took a knife, got in the bathtub, filled the tub, and opened up both wrists and
both wrists?
Both of them. And the bathtub immediately was going dark, crimson. I mean, it was happening fast. My consciousness was slipping out, and I even locked the bathroom door. That girl was not supposed to be back, came home.
Oh, my word.
Found the bathroom door locked, called 911, who were there within seconds.
That is a miracle.
As hard as I tried, my creator, God, a higher power, the paramedics, however it is helpful for you to wrap your head around it, it is truly a miracle that I lived.
Yeah.
That was institutionalized for a while. Getting out of there, went into a inpatient treatment program back home in Kansas. My siblings helped find for me. Moved into like recovery housing. Lived in like Oxford housing for a while. Started to find the path. Now, I fell a lot. relapsed a number of times. It still took me a couple of
Sure.
more years, but the process began, and getting clean and getting sober. What is so important, and what I want people to know who are watching or listening to this, is that the first moment that I started to realize and recognize that I was not alone was, first of all, it's these nurses and orderlies who are just on state, hourly wage, and who gives a crap. And yet there they are, wiping my ass, taking care of me, helping me change linens.
Yeah.
And then the strangers who are showing up in these 12-step meetings, who are reaching out to me, who are going, we're here. What can we do for you?
Sure.
How can we help? And the power of something so much greater than myself that provided me an opportunity to survive, to stay alive, and to then continue on a path forward, which my last use was May 10th, 2002.
Whoa.
It's now October 30th, 2024. And before anybody gets the impression that I'm here proselytizing, like I've got the answers, like I'm some kind of guru about this stuff, or that I think I've somehow been cured, Tyler can attest. I'm 22 years into being clean and sober, and yet the spiritual work on myself, your alone voice got so loud to me in the last year that though I did not pick up drugs, I did not drink again, the other ways in which the manifestation of my attempts to quell that fear, which have become for me workaholism, control issues, inundating behaviors,
Sure.
all kinds of other ways that this shit can manifest, has led to where I am today, which was I went back full force, many more miracles that took place that led me right back into the rooms where I'm working the 12-step program again. Now I'm 5 months into an entirely new spiritual journey where people like you have entered my life, and we talk about purpose. So talking to you guys today, talking to you today, talking about when I show up to do the Suicide Squad, when I make a movie like Late Night with the Devil, or when I write a film like Animals that I wrote and produced, or when I write my comic books. Here's what is my purpose. Yes, I love entertaining people. I love transporting people. I love manifesting and creating characters and telling stories and weaving good yarns and taking people on adventures and asking big questions and trying to wrestle with the big things that matter in life. But at the end of the day, I believe my purpose is to be here to remind people that they are not alone.
Amazing.
You're not alone. You know that. Somebody out here may
know
not
that.
know that, though.
Yes.
And I want you to know it's true. And trust me, I know how hard it is to believe that.
It's almost impossible to believe that when you're going through feeling alone. Yes. You have a beautiful story. Really? You have some of the most...
Thanks.
Let's go ahead. So
Thank
you have
you.
some of them... You have also have several of the most poignant... I think that's correct word. Your examples, like you have a story that's really blew me away, where you say, although you would think that suicide is kind of a lowest low, you have expressed that the lowest you felt about yourself was it involved considering trying to scare someone by
Yeah.
tell me that story.
So this is very soon before I finally got clean, when I am circling the drain of what we call our bottom.
Right.
Every addict or alcoholic can look back at their story when they're in recovery and be like, boy, that was a bottom for me. I'm living in a car. I am mostly parking that car at night in the Lincoln Park Zoo roads off Marine Drive in Chicago, because that's overnight parking is allowed. And I would sleep in the car, wake up sick as shit every morning, sweating, shaking, thinking about which store I hadn't robbed recently. I also always kept a dress shirt and tie so that if there was a wedding at one of the churches nearby, I could walk into the lobby and take a bunch of gifts off the gift table.
Oh my God.
And I was so desperate, and I had so little energy in me. And there's a young mother with a stroller and a very nice handbag. And this is like the late summer of '01, fall of '01. And it's at a time when, like, yes, we're also used to now only using cards, but like people carried cash back then, and people carried more valuables, it seems like back then. Like a good purse snatching was super powerful, but this woman had so much stuff, and I knew I wasn't in a place to just grab and run or do a gang. So my rigs were pretty gnarly at that point. I had a rusty, dirty needle, and I got, out of the car with the needle in hand, the way you might hold any weapon.
Yeah.
And I approached this beautiful little family with the needle, and, to say, give me all of this shit or I will stick you or your kid. I have AIDS, and that's that.
Hardcore.
And at this point, I also have a wildly infected tooth.
Oh, God.
That is pumping pain by the second into my whole left side of my face, my swollen face. It was pussing. I'm sweating from the withdrawals, sweating from the tooth infection. I'm all of probably 145 pounds. I'm 6'2", like
you're a zombie.
190 right now. Imagine me 55 pounds thinner. And I walk towards her, and I start shaking, and I break down, and I start crying, and I can't do it. I can't face myself. And I pray, God, please, if there's some way out of this, help me. And I've learned so much in the years since being at that low, because I tell you something, I'm a father of 2 now. I've honestly felt, like I told you, even in the last year, having really drifted away from my journey of work and recovery and self-awareness and the consciousness work that I have to be doing as a man, like, I felt as low as I felt that day, and even lower when I see how my inattentiveness to the important work that needs doing can lead to pain and suffering on even the people I love today. Right? Here's the thing. I was really frustrated back in the day because I'd go, God, if you're there, just take this sickness away from me. Take this disease away from me. Take this addiction away from me. God, I keep reading all these things are in the program. They talk about, you have to come to this willingness, and then you're going to ask, God to relieve you of this thing. And I believe the difference between the idea that I had of a creator when I was a kid, which was kind of like genuinely, it sounds like a cliche, but it was kind of like an old father figure sitting in some massive like control room, pulling levers for those of us who deserved to get what we wanted, and pulling up levers on those of us who deserved to go into infinite suffering, judging God, if you will, which scared the crap out of me as a kid. Now, as an adult, this relationship that I'm building with this creative, beautiful creator, the universe, God, that is like wants, and if you're watching this, you're like, I'm an atheist, fuck you, I don't want to hear this. It's okay. Just hear me out for a second. Just listen. I promise. I'm not here to convert you to anything. Just play with this idea for a second. There's a wealth of very useful, very powerful information that lays before us that has been done by the tireless work of others, that includes all of the scientific, tried and true, proven by the scientific method approaches to how to recover consciousness, how to live happy, joyous, free. And I'm talking about everything. Scientific realm, the 12-step work, all that's been this foundation that is there and exists. There's also these groups of people who are willing to sit and listen to you and talk to you and share with you their experience, their strength, and their hope. So for me in the past, when I go, I'm ready now to ask God to relieve me of, let's say, this inclination I have towards feeling suicidal, this inclination I have towards experiencing FOMO and acting out against it, whatever it may be. That the old me that goes, okay, so I'm going to say a prayer now, and if I'm doing good, this old man in a control room is going to pull a lever, and then it's going to work. That's not what I'm talking about anymore. What I'm talking about is the true miracle that goes, what is my participation in this? So yes, I do consciously say a prayer. To me, that helps. That works.
Right.
It gets breath into my body, gets breath into my brain. It means something to me. But when I ask God, God is, to me, all this wonderful resource and opportunity that lays before me that if I take the initiative and I'm willing to show up, I can do. And that might mean just logging into a support group meeting. It might just mean picking up the phone and saying, Tyler, I'm in a really bad place right now. That works. That has been working for me, and it continues to work. And I believe it's going to keep me not only sober, but also creatively flourishing.
Sure.
Mentally healthy for the rest of my life.
I've seen you personally be of service to people and help people through things. And that also is such a fuel. Being of service is another big part of it. It's like and so it's like you being in your purpose is also being of service to others. And I mean, I don't have any stats, but when you're both in your purpose and that is helping others, it's like there's nothing better.
Bro.
There's no better way to live.
Dude,
it's just
that's
the
you, man.
rewards.
That's you. You are that. You're talking to yourself right now. I don't feel it. Thank you for saying that to me. I want to be more of service than I am right now. I see you. I'm in a group text with you. There's a guy who's suffering. You're right there. Hey, come over, have dinner with me and my family tonight. You're there. You're like, hey, what can I do for you? Are you okay? I express in a meeting that I'm having a hard time. I'm going through things right now. We're all going through things, guys. I promise you, you're not alone. Like, I'm going through really hard transitions in my life, and you're right there with a call or a text. Hey, man, just checking on you. That's where I aspire to be. That's the path that I'm working towards.
Thank you.
I want to be there, man.
It's a huge compliment. That means a ton. It is a charge. Homeboy, I'm not going to reveal anyone's name, but he was going through something and really just fell apart, and helping him through, kind of picking him up and helping him through that gave me like juice for a month.
That's
great. It's in some ways it's such a thing that you do for yourself when you reach out and help somebody else.
And I slip so quickly. It's one of the more insidious elements of my disease. Like, one of my defaults is what my sponsor calls them instead of defects of character. One of the things I default to is self-pity, self-justification.
Sure.
Look at what others have done to me. Life is unfair. This is unfair that this happened. Now, having those kinds of dark thoughts, which are useless, they don't get us anywhere. I promise you could spend hours really mulling over how this person did this, and without taking into any accountability your role in it, and also the energy you expend on that, as opposed to, oh man, I haven't talked to so-and-so in a while. I know his mom's going through a dementia episode right now. What have I reached out to see what I can do to help him? This person could be a benefit, if maybe I just called to check on them. Oh, I wonder how so-and-so. Once that energy shifts like that, like it's ninja, it's Jedi, it's jujitsu, it's fascinating. You open something in you, man, and
totally,
it's the way of the wizard. I don't get it still. Like, I still get caught up. It's so easy for me to slip into. You name it.
It is the best medicine for acting like a little bitch in your head. If you can be aware that you're doing that, and you pick up a phone, you check on. A great example is someone whose mother is going through dementia. Hey man, how are you? You're out of it for a few minutes. You're out of your own soup for a few minutes. It's
a good exercise, and anybody can try it. If you're watching this right now, just think about you're in a partnership right now. You're in a relationship with somebody, and it's so easy to look at what conflicts you've been having lately, and you look, they did this. It affects makes me angry. It makes me feel unsafe. It makes me feel this. How often are you adding one more column there, which is, what's my part in it? That's what program asks us to do, but I think it's what the journey will ask us to do. Like, what's my part in it? And then if it's not that person, because it would be amazing if you could be like, I wonder if what have I done lately to ask that person? How can I support you? What have I been? How is there anything I could do to help you? If it's not that person, then it's that friend of yours, that person you haven't talked to in a while, that member of your family, and then you get like Yoda level at it, which trust me, I'm miles from there, but it's like, oh, that person who believes really differently than me, that person who votes differently than me, that person who expresses themselves in a way that I find really difficult. Am I going to be able to like extend some love to them? And when I do, what does the universe offer as a potential for that? And I'm not talking about rewards here. I'm not saying, oh, look at good me. I'm extending the olive branch. That's not what this is about.
Yeah.
There's a veil over this reality, and you start to peek and see under it, and the secret connection, the beautiful creative bond that really lies between all of us, that is constantly overshadowed by this weird force in the universe that is trying to separate us and convince us that we're alone. And when you can be a part of the energy that's working against that, I'm not talking about you getting rewards or some promise of some golden streeted afterlife. I'm literally talking about in the right now, the here and now, you can feel less alone. You feel better about yourself. When you reach out to me and you're like, Dave, I mean, you've always got this awesome, excited energy. You're like, how are you, man? I know you seem like you're having a tough day today. You're not expecting anything in return.
Nothing.
But you feel something special, right?
You do get it, yeah.
It's awesome, Tyler.
You do get it. That is a hack, a kind of a Jedi hack. The other thing, it's like if you were to have a conversation with the most practical person in the world, we were talking about conflicts. We dipped into conflicts and everything. And I think that if you can accept the fact that the chances of improving someone else's behavior is very low, but if there's something in this problem that you're having with someone else, or even just the way the universe is working or whatever, if you can find something that you are responsible for, you have a chance of changing that. So one big hack is maybe trying to get excited about the fact that or let's say to get excited about things that you find that you are responsible for, like problems or situations. If you're responsible for it, it's awesome because you have a shot at changing that. So it's a perception shift that takes place. If you can go from blaming everyone and everything, you're not going to get anywhere with that. But if you can address, or if you can identify anything that you're bringing to the table that's making the world worse or this relationship worse, there's a chance you can fix that. You probably can't fix the other stuff. And for anyone that's practical and it's like, forget all of the other spiritual stuff. It's like almost like from the point of an engineer. You can if you find that you're responsible for the problem of anything, you can fix that. So from an engineer's perspective, like you can fix that bridge. If it's someone else, you probably can't fix that bridge. So that was a huge click for me.
It's huge.
to
It's
get
massive.
excited about things that I was finding that was negative about myself.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
courage. And it's something that probably just comes with practice and time and experience, because often for me, having the willingness to look at my part in something, what is
Yeah.
the thing that the behavior that I brought to the table, is in itself a huge step. Huge
Even
step.
looking is a huge
Just
step.
looking,
Yeah.
acknowledging, being willing to accept, and being willing to let go then of the other person. Well, I still want them to apologize. I want them to not be so argumentative. I want them to see my point of view. Let go. Let go. Let go of your expectation of the other person's role in the thing. What's my role in the thing? Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Was I actually being an active listener? Was I actually extending or creating a space between us where I was willing to just go,
Yeah.
okay? Because if I wasn't, and I am now willing to make that change, maybe that circumstance is come and gone. Maybe that person is even kind of, that relationship is wherever it is. But for today, that's again, they use the term defect. I think default behavior, which we
Sure.
develop through just therapeutic work I've been doing through, modules like internal family systems, parts work, etc. I've come to the conclusion that a lot of the default behaviors that have grown in me over 4 decades have been coming from a good place, like coming from a desire to protect myself, my inner youngest wounded feelings and memories from having to feel that pain again. But they express themselves through a part of me that wants to maybe control a situation, through a part of me that might want to strategize in a situation, that might want to be dishonest in a situation, a part of me that yearns to dominate a situation. Those parts of me, they're not bad. I'm not a bad person. Those are just parts that have evolved and developed over time.
Yeah.
They think they're helping keep us safe. So now I go, okay, I'm facing a conflict right now, and this part of me is really striving to have me control it, because I know then I can feel a sense of safety and security within this conflict. What's a thing I can change in myself to not control?
Sure. So much better.
And you do that, and we do it in the work that we do. I feel awkward to this day, like calling myself a writer or an artist or anything. But we if we stop growing, if we stop, evolving with the work that we're doing and being in your creative space, I can just see how it just keeps going. It's like we die if we don't.
David, it took me 1,000 years to get comfortable calling myself an artist. I know you obviously can relate. You just mentioned it. That is such a weird thing to be an artist. You have to have the confidence to, in some ways, call yourself an artist without feeling like you're just calling yourself a douchebag. Douchebag is the closest word to artist that for me at least, they're right next to each other. Where many times I just feel like a douchebag pretending to be an artist, and it's sometimes anytime that someone asks, do you have any advice for young artists, for new artists? And I go, I don't have any advice, but I do have something I can tell you, something that worked for me that I think is helpful, and it avoids the long period of getting comfortable with calling yourself an artist. And it's that you have to have kind of a RuPaul drag queen kind of moment where you just come out strong. And it's like, I imagine that RuPaul probably had a bunch of friends that never would expect, I don't know that much about RuPaul, but it's like would never expect that she would dress up like a woman and have this amazing flamboyant drag queen personality. Probably if you talk to someone back in her history, they would have no idea. But at one point she decided to just come out. And so I think that as an artist, you really have to just go, all right, fuck it. I'm just going to come out as flamboyantly, or if, I'm going to make sure that everyone understands I see myself as an artist. And
this is who I am.
Yeah.
And I have to be authentic to who I am. And it's so hard to own that and have agency within that because we see, I think a lot of times when I see people who are comfortable in that skin of discussing their art themselves as artists, talking about it in a serious way,
Yeah.
I cringe.
Cringe.
And I used to think I'm cringing because that person's being pretentious. I don't believe that to be true anymore. Again, talking about fourth column stuff and taking my involvement in it, I think it's because I'm seeing myself have those same thoughts and feelings, and I feel super insecure about expressing them. Maybe I'm even a little envious of the fact that that person is comfortable enough in their skin to sit on a stage, do a Q&A, do a podcast, and be like, as an artist, I da. But guess what? I'm on week 11 of, man, here's a journey. So when I was in college, I was given the book, The Artist's Way.
Oh, yeah.
By my sister. And I remember I kind of futzed around with it a little bit. And I was like, this is so cheesy and lame. And I'm too cool for this. It's pretentious. Over the years, I always kind of had a like better than attitude about it. This past year, my wife, who's an artist, at one point was like, hey, I think I'm going to do The Artist's Way. And I totally, like an asshole, had the like, oh, sure, kind of attitude about it. Then,
oh God,
the universe just kept like, you know what, you little piece of shit, like get some humility in your life. Like then my therapist recommended it. Then I was in one of my AA meetings and a group of guys were like, hey, we're going to start a little side group. We're going to do Artist's Way. I was like, okay, I'm listening. So I get the book. My best friend who lives in France, he lives the life of a true like artist, and he's just an amazing person. He goes, hey, so I'm doing this book called The Artist's Way. I was like, I get it. Yeah. So I'm in like week 11 of the book and the journey, and having a sense of reclamation with ourselves. And if you're watching this, you're like, well, I'm not an artist. Reclamation just of yourself. What is the part of yourself that you have hidden under a bush? What is the part of yourself that you have really abandoned?
Sure.
And for you and I think it's being able to really claim that and feel proud of ourselves in that. I also do a lot more. It's rather schizophrenic, but a lot more self-talking than I ever did before, because I really want to live a self-led life where I can be my own primary source of support. And to do that, sometimes I have to be like, hey, David, dude, that's a good job on that. You know, that instead of needing anyone else's validation, I finish a new pass on a script or whatever, I look at it honestly and earnestly and with some humility and go, oh, you did really good there.
Great. There's like, talk about, if I was going to point to a few things from this conversation that seem like just really helpful things, if you can give yourself a couple of compliments in the course of a day, your day's going to be way better. If you can find one or two things that you could have done better in terms of relationships with other people or something, and you can try to work on those, your day is going to be so much better. If you can find one or two little resentments that you've developed and take a look at those and maybe think, am I just upset with how I might be in that situation, or am I, drop those resentments somehow, your day is going to be way better. It's wild. Reach out to one or two people a day, your day, and see how they're doing. Your day will be way better. And then over time, those wins stack up. They stack up.
And if you're feeling, this is a big hack, you're feeling alone, or you're falling under that influence of that voice that tells you you're alone, just try it. Just try it once. Reach out to somebody and check in on them, see how they're doing, see if there's anything you can do for them, see if that helps.
So solid. Hey, you have a story. I don't want to miss this, because you have a story that I also think is hilarious. You have two interactions with police that I think are and by the way, if anyone all you have to do to see the best story of recovery, the best shares to Google, YouTube, David Dastmalchian talks about recovery, and you'll see, and you have this American flag waving behind you. It's the best. So but one of these stories is so funny to me, where you were police officers that had just had enough in the neighborhood. I don't know how anyone becomes it's so difficult to become a police officer. I have so much sympathy for how difficult that job is. But they had seen, probably get to the point of saying, they thought enough is enough. And they probably had seen you in and out of different crack houses and stuff, and probably thought that you were a real danger to the society. And what did they do? You have two stories that I love, but one is with the beating.
One, the first time was, I was opening a play that weekend, a really important special play that I was really lucky to be a part of. And it's Friday morning, and I would cop my dope early in the morning so I could just be well throughout the day, not to get high, just so I wouldn't be dope sick.
Right.
And I'd already copped, but there was two vice cops, two undercover Chicago West Side cops, and I'm right near the project where I had just scored off of this dealer. And so they came over to the car, and they're like, "What are you doing over here?" And I was like, "Oh, just waiting for a friend, getting cigarettes." And they just sat there and waited. And like, "Where's your friend?" And they waited. And like 10, 15 minutes go by. I was like, all right, I lied. I was gonna buy drugs, but I didn't. And they were like, "Come on." They took me in the alley.
Wow.
Took what cash I had left on me. Didn't find the dope, which was, I had crotched it. But one of the cops puts on his leather glove. He gets out his gloves. He puts on his gloves. He goes,
Okay.
"Do you know what these are?" And I was like, "No." And he goes, "These are my beatdown gloves." And then the other cop was like, "Face or body?" And I was like, "What?" And the guy rears back to punch me in the face. And I said, "Body, body, body, body." And they just wailed on my belly and rib cage.
Wow.
And these are guys who've watched their friends get shot and killed.
Of course.
These are guys who are watching, it's a complicated situation. None of us has the right answer for it. Policing communities, policing underprivileged communities, policing neighborhoods where there is major drug, both addiction and sale running rampant as one of the only forms of like sustainable, even economic income for a lot of people in that community. I mean, the whole situation's so utterly fucked, but white kids of privilege coming in there and spending money and propagating this whole system has got to be one of the most frustrating things for a cop who's not making a great, probably salary, who's putting his life on the line or her life on the line. And then the anger that those cops felt at me. At the time, I felt like a complete victim and self-pitying and blah, blah, blah. But looking back now, I go, yeah, it was totally fucked up for them to beat up an addict, and I'm an addict, and there's a more complex situation than that. But it's a messy situation.
It's a messy situation.
And that leads to the next story, which I love this guy. Towards the end of my buying in Chicago, and I would go to all the housing projects that had the best dope. And I'm parked and pull up in front of this project, and and I go inside, and I score like 10 bags of dope. I forget. I mean, this is literally one of the very last times I scored dope on the west side of Chicago. Yeah. Come back to the car, and there's an undercover unit parked at my car. I'm like, fuck. They've seen me now. I'm with a girl who's in the car, so I can't run.
Okay.
And it's an older cop. Maybe in his late 50s, early 60s, I should say older. He's not older, but like he's been around the block. And he's got two young rookies with him.
Yeah.
And they're all undercover. So they've got a flak jacket and they've got like a badge around their neck. They're not in like uniform. And he goes, he's like, his kid had struggled with addiction. And he goes, "I can arrest you right now." He goes, "I know there's dope on you right now.
Yeah.
But I can arrest you. You'll be in holding tonight. You'll be out tomorrow. You're white. You're probably going to get bail. You probably got somebody you can call who bail you out. You probably even got a lawyer if you need it. You're going to be back here in a few days." And he goes, really loudly, he's like, "So where's the drugs in there?" And I'm like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, it's okay. So it's up there, and which guys are the ones that sold it to you?" Okay. He's talking so loud making it sound like I'm narking on the spot.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Such a great
you're
move.
putting a target on my back. What are you doing? He goes, well, then I guess you just aren't going to want to come back here anymore. He didn't even search me. He didn't book me. He didn't run my license. He sent me on my, and he said, I pray for you. I
Wow.
pray that that you can get out from under this. I know what a horrible thing it is. He goes, but I hope you never come back to this spot. Because he did. He made it impossible. Because, by the way, for those, most of you watching probably haven't spent time buying drugs in housing projects or any neighborhood on street drug dealing. They have lookouts 5 feet away. They've got even kids sad. They will pay a kid who's playing on the playground to be a lookout, just constantly keeping their eyes peeled so they can text if a cop shows up, if whatever, they know they need to hide their stuff. But now every single pair of eyes in that whole block sees me talking to this undercover cop, and the undercover cop making it look like I've now told them where the drugs are.
Sure.
And then they went into the drug spot after, as I was leaving. I could see them going in. It's kind of amazing.
What a great move.
Yeah. Wild, man.
What a great move.
What a journey it's been. What a story. What a life. All of us, every person has this. And I'm just grateful that you think it's interesting enough to want to talk about.
Dude, are you kidding? You have some of my favorite stories. I feel like I'm interviewing. I actually sat down before he died. I did an interview with my grandfather, and I wanted him to just repeat all of the favorite stories that my cousins and I just loved.
It's awesome.
But yeah, I love hearing these stories. What are you most passionate? What project are you working on right now that you're most? I'm a huge fan of comic books, and now that we're in this like golden age of superhero storytelling and all this stuff, it just makes me so happy.
I'm really proud of the opportunities that I've been able to create for myself, but also I'm very grateful for the opportunities I've been given. Getting into publishing comic books is a very hard thing to do. And in the beginning of my pitches, I felt like a little bit of resistance, like, oh, an actor, he just thinks he can just make a comic book. And I don't think that a lot of the publishers realize I've been reading, collecting, and loving comics my whole life. So when I had this chance to finally get to pitch my ideas, I worked on them for so long, I knew I needed to really blow people away. So I have a long-going series with Dark Horse Comics called Count Crowley. It's about a woman who's an alcoholic her life is in the drain. She wants to be a network news anchor, but after she's assaulted and no one believes her alcoholism gets worse and she's unemployable. Her brother puts her on the late-night horror show introducing old horror movies, and she's humiliated because she's like, I'm a legit news anchor, but she's wasted. And she learns that monsters are real. The guy who used to have her job was one of the last people trying to keep people safe from monsters. And she not only has to figure out how to live sober, but how to fight werewolves, vampires, zombies, etc. It's called Count Crowley. It's
I
with
didn't even
Dark
know about
Horse.
this.
I have a new superhero monster series with DC Comics called Creature Commandos that I'm very proud of, about a group of monsters who have been maligned and haven't ever been able to find a useful purpose for themselves in this life until they've been given this chance to serve on this team.
Doesn't that come out this
It's
month?
out right now. Issue 1 just dropped. Issue 2 comes out in a week. Isn't
it an animated?
There's an animated TV series too, which is the same title. It's actually James Gunn. That's his show, which is totally separate from my comic book series, but they're based on the same DC property. Yeah. So I'm lucky that James even let me keep making this comic book, because it's like his is a very big deal and it's part of like the DCU. Mine is like a little monster military thing, but if you like good comics, I think you'll dig this one. Okay. And then with Image, I have a new series called Knights versus Samurai. Yeah. And it's 1585 and a legion of knights who believe they're on a holy mission. Yeah. But have been duped by the aristocracy. And a group of samurai warriors who believe they're on a noble mission, but have also been duped by the feudal lords, are sent in to battle with one another. And they, because of the language barrier and because of their misunderstandings of one another, think that each other's their enemies. But through the power of magic, because there's dragons and ogres and witches, they start to come to the conclusion that maybe not everything is as it seems.
Killer.
And that happens to us every day. We're constantly convinced by the powers that be that people that look differently than us, speak differently than us, come from different places than us are our enemies. And it's just a total fucking lie. I've got a couple of horror one-shots out for this time of year, which you would dig. Headless Horseman at Dark Horse, DC Horror Presents at DC.
Jeez.
And then really proud of Late Night with the Devil is on Hulu right now, as well as Shudder. Check that one out. I've got a couple of movies coming up next year. Life of Chuck from Mike Flanagan and Dust Bunny from Brian Fuller, both of which are really special movies to me. And then I don't know when it's coming out, but I hope soon. I did a series for Apple that's called Murderbot. Paul and Chris Weitz created this based on a book that is phenomenal, The Murderbot Diaries, by Martha Wells, and it stars Alexander Skarsgård, and it's a really special role for me in which I get to wrestle and talk about themes of addiction, codependency, stuff that is really meaningful to me.
Dude, you have so much killer shit going on.
I'm very grateful, very blessed, very fortunate, very lucky.
You're also, it's like you can have unlimited killer shit going on that you also worked very hard to manifest and create and still suffer from life. And your solution is to treat it on the daily with a program that we're in, spiritual program. But I think it's always great for anyone who thinks that maybe if they just had something work out, they would be happy. If I just had, it's like you have like 20 dreams at once working out.
And I get it, you guys. Like, trust me, I know that feeling. I remember, the first 5 years after getting clean, it was like if I could just be able to even afford to pay my rent. I was working a telemarketing job, and I was working a movie theater, and I was just writing constantly, and I never thought I'd get back to acting again. And then when I was acting, I was doing theater for years that didn't pay anything, but I knew I needed to do it. And then even after I got The Dark Knight, it took me another couple of years to be able to even get an agent or manager in Los Angeles that would pay attention to me. I was doing all kinds of short films, making music videos for zero money, living off of between unemployment and whatever part-time jobs I could get. But if I weren't clean and wasn't on the path of mental wellness and recovery, none of this would be even close to fathomably possible. So if you feel like, you're feeling hopeless, you feel like there isn't a way out, I swear on the heads of my children there is. I promise you from the bottom of my heart, you're not alone. And there are free resources. There are free rooms you could go into right now, today. There's a group of people that will listen to you and talk to you, no matter what your struggle may be.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not alcohol and drugs. Maybe it's cutting. Maybe it's self-harm. Maybe it's food. Maybe it's sex. Maybe it's religion. I don't know. There are people that are out here that are willing to listen and help you.
The place that saved my life is free. He's referencing 12-step programs, which also I feel 12-step programs have saved me. There is a specific place if you're in Los Angeles, or actually you can be anywhere in the country, and it's called the Dream Center, dreamcenter.org. On Instagram, it's LA Dream Center. And they will take anybody in the world. They'll take anybody in. And if someone's suffering from homelessness or they're addicted to whatever, they will take people in and allow them to live for a year. Room, board, everything, and sometimes longer. And they take in people that are victims of sex trafficking and human trafficking. Families that have just fallen on the skids, anything. It's one of the most amazing things. I am a firm believer that Irish goodbyes are the only way to go. If you do not Irish goodbye and you think it's important to tell the host your boring story about the babysitter at the end of the party's ending, and you think it's important to take the host aside and go, our babysitter only works so many hours, and you have just lowered the vibration of the party. And so I think our Irish goodbyes are the best. And so the way that we say goodbye is just peace.